Rock is dead. Ever since Gene Simmons uttered those three words back in 2014, they have permeated the discourse around rock music and its relevance in today's culture. It's true that rock has lost much of its luster since the glory days of the 80s, 90s, and even the early 2000s, but to say that rock is dead would be a gross exaggeration.
Why do you need new bands? Everyone knows rock attained perfection in 1974. It's a scientific fact.
Obviously, great rock music is still being made today, and Simmons' notion that rock no longer exists in the zeitgeist is not entirely accurate either. Just last year, Sleep Token and Ghost secured #1 albums in the US, while Youngblood staked his claim as the next rock star of his generation. Now, your mileage may vary on how authentic these acts truly are. Me personally, I don't really care. But even on a smaller scale, rock bands have enjoyed continued success in the mainstream, and I can't think of a better example than The Pretty Reckless. Many might have written off The Pretty Reckless as just another vanity project of one more actor turned singer, but Taylor Momsen and co have defied the odds since their inception by sticking firmly to their guns with a sound deeply indebted to the classics, yet still fresh and wholly their own. They've stayed away from scenes and trends to carve out their own niche brand of rock and roll that's allowed them to remain credible both in the rock world and in the mainstream. But like so many before them, their road hasn't been easy. The Pretty Reckless have endured their fair share of heartache and pain, but have come out on the other side stronger and more popular than ever. This, I think, is more than enough reason to delve deeper into the story of The Pretty Reckless. The highs, the lows, and everything in between. Okay, let's take it back. The year is 2007, and the hottest thing on TV is the brand new teen drama Gossip Girl. Among its cast of future stars was 14-year-old Taylor Momsen. Now, Momsen had been a child actor since the age of 3, with her most famous role up to that point being that of Cindy Lou Who in 2000's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Momsen appeared as a regular on Gossip Girl during its first 4 seasons, until 2011 when she left the show to pursue a career in music. Now, the idea of an actor turned musician is nothing new in the world of entertainment, but seldom has it been seen as anything more than a novelty or an exercise in self-indulgence. However, Momsen's first passion had always been music, ever since she discovered the Beatles at a young age. She'd even made her recording debut at the age of 7 when she performed the song Where Are You Christmas in The Grinch.
I do music because I love it, and it's like people are going to say what they're going to say. They're going to think I'm an actress turned singer because I can do it, and it's not what it is. I've been singing longer than I've been acting. I've been writing music for my entire life. It's like, so I know people aren't going to know that instantly, but it's, it all takes time. It's all cool.
Around 2009, Momsen started seriously working towards a career in music. It wasn't until she met producer Kato Kandwala that her vision truly started to take shape.
I met Kato through, I was trying to find the right producers and the right people to work with, and Kato's name came up and we met and hit it off immediately. We liked the same bands. That was the start. Because
check, somebody check.
Hey, both Soundgarden fans, awesome. So that started it, and then through him I met Ben, and we started writing together, and it just really clicked.
Kandwala introduced her to guitarist Ben Phillips, and the two began a successful writing partnership. Soon, Momsen put together The Reckless, later renamed The Pretty Reckless.
Originally, it was supposed to be The Reckless, which just sounded cool, and I wanted the name because of the Beatles. And I liked The Reckless, but we had some trademarking issues, so we were told to add a word. It would be temporary. I thought pretty sounded better than moderately reckless.
Yeah.
Little did I know, 15 years later, we'd still be the Pretty Reckless. So it is what it is.
The band had already made their live debut in 2009 opening for the Veronicas. But after Momsen hooked up with Kandwala and Phillips, the band's lineup was completely reshuffled, with Phillips joining on guitar, Mark Damon taking over on bass, and Jamie Perkins behind the drums. And thus, the Pretty Reckless were formed. The Pretty Reckless spent the better part of 2 years working on their debut album. The public got their first real taste of Momsen's new musical venture when the song Make Me Wanna Die played during the closing credits of the 2010 film Kick-Ass.
Every time I look
group's debut album was preceded by their self-titled EP, which was released to coincide with the band going on Warped Tour during the summer. The Pretty Reckless's debut album Light Me Up was released in August 2010. A varied mix of traditional rock, alternative, and grunge, the Pretty Reckless were still very much finding their footing, but nevertheless made a clear statement that this was way more than just a vanity project. Both critics and audiences seem to agree, with the album debuting at number 6 in the UK. Pretty Reckless spent the next 2 years touring relentlessly, opening for such industry legends as Evanescence and Guns N' Roses. Despite their early success, however, Momsen still faced her fair share of criticism, with some deriding her as a poser or an industry plant.
Well, they didn't take it seriously, which in their defense, I wouldn't have either.
Okay, talking about that.
If you brought to me a 14-year-old fronted rock band with a chick who was on a soap opera, I would roll my eyes at it and go, yeah, I don't give two fucks about whatever you're trying to show me right now.
Fair.
Perhaps as a way of sticking it to the critics, Momsen made continued headlines with her new look and wild stage antics, maintaining the long tradition of former child stars trying to mature by sexing up their image.
This whole wild child persona, it was just the makeup and my fashion choices, which were a bit outrageous, but very me. I was just being authentic. And so I think some of that was curated. And also, it's my image. My image was a little out there. And I was now I call it pretentious. I look back on it and I go, oh, it's cringy how pretentious some of the things I would say was and how I'd speak and carry myself. But that's who I was at the time.
In 2012, the band released another EP, Hit Me Like a Man, which coincided with their second headline tour. With their debut album being a success and having toured the world several times over, the Pretty Reckless were well on their way establishing themselves as one of the best new names in rock. In September 2013, the Pretty Reckless released Going to Hell, the lead single from their forthcoming second album. The song signaled a bold new era for the group with its raw, down and dirty sound, and lyrics which drew upon Momsen's own Catholic background.
This record's much more stripped down than Light Me Up was. This when we wrote and recorded Light Me Up, we hadn't toured yet, but we played it live as a band. So it was done in the studio, so it was a lot of production, and then when we go out on the road, we don't play with tracks, so it was, how do you take this from the studio version and strip it down into working span? Yeah. And we had to essentially kind of rework everything, and this record, we kept that in mind, because after touring for 2.5 years, we kind of became a really tight unit, so this record, I think, represents what we sound like as a live band much, much more than Light Me Up does. It's definitely an evolution, and you can hear it.
The second single, Heaven Knows, released in November, continued with this approach and gave the Pretty Reckless their first bona fide hit, when it reached number 1 on the US rock charts. The album, Going to Hell, was released in March 2014. With the benefit of a hit single, the record reached number 5 in the US and number 8 in the UK. The following singles, Up World and Follow Me Down, also topped the rock charts, breaking the record for most number ones by a female-fronted band since the chart's launch. The band spent much of the next 2 years on the road, before returning to the studio to start work on their third album. The years spent touring informed much of the record and its themes, with the band continuing to strip back their sound even more to its rawest form.
We tried to make a really honest, organic record that really kind of captured the human element of music that I think is lacking in a lot of records today, because now everything can be digitally manipulated and fixed in computers, and we did not do that. So the first time we brought in outside musicians so we could actually set up as a band and jam and play through the songs and see where they were going to take us, and some of them took us to different places than we thought they were going to go originally, so it was a good thing.
This was most evident on the album's lead single, Take Me Down, which was released in July 2016. The Rolling Stones' track became the group's 4th single to top the rock charts, and set another chart record, with the Pretty Reckless becoming the first act to send its first 4 entries to number 1. The album Who You Selling For was released in October and reached number 13 in the US. In support, the Pretty Reckless embarked on another world tour, which also included select dates, opening for Soundgarden. This was a big deal, especially for Momsen, who cited Soundgarden and their lead singer Chris Cornell as one of her biggest heroes.
You know, is there any band that would be just like a dream band that you're like, oh, if we could tour with them, that would be awesome?
Soundgarden.
Yeah, and you're doing it.
No, I know it's insane. Soundgarden, one of my favorite bands of all time. So it's pretty amazing that we get to open for them.
Unfortunately, her dream come true would soon turn into a nightmare.
New this morning, rocker Chris Cornell, who gained fame as the lead singer of Soundgarden and later Audioslave, has died.
On May 17, 2017, the Pretty Reckless opened for Soundgarden at the Fox Theater in Detroit, Michigan. Later that night, Soundgarden frontman Chris Cornell was found unresponsive in his hotel room and was later pronounced dead at the age of 52.
Hearing the news that someone I just spoke to and hugged and talked to a couple hours ago is no longer here, I couldn't process it at first. Like I was confused. I was going, "What are you saying to me right now?" And that turned into sinking in, which turned into the biggest pit in my stomach of devastation and just the worst feeling in the world. Of like, I mean, I fell the apart. I fell onto the ground.
Cornell's death had a profound effect on Momsen, with the Pretty Reckless cancelling their next performance in New Jersey. The band returned to the stage on May 20th when they performed Audioslave's Like a Stone in tribute to Cornell. Still reeling from the death of one of her idols, Momsen and the band were dealt another blow when the band's longtime producer and friend, Kato Kandwala, was killed in a motorcycle accident in April 2018. Kandwala's death sent Momsen down a spiral of depression and substance abuse. Ultimately, though, it was music that helped Momsen overcome her grief.
I shut myself off from the world in this very dramatic way. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't want to see anyone. I fell apart. And I eventually turned to writing, which is the place that I always, anytime I felt down, or anytime I felt anything, that's where I could find my center, is through writing. And that was the turning point where I went, okay, I gotta make music. Like this is how I'm going to get through this. This is how I'm going to honor his legacy. This is how I'm going to keep his memory alive. I'm going to finish what we started, and not let this take me down entirely, which it came very close to that. I had to make a very conscious decision at some point where I was either going to die or I was going to try to move forward.
In November 2019, Momsen indicated that the Pretty Reckless were back in the studio working on new music. The deaths of Cornell and Kandwala informed much of their next album, titled Death by Rock and Roll, which was ultimately released in February 2021. The album's title came directly from Kandwala, which Momsen likened to a battle cry to live your life your own way. The title track, which fittingly opens with the sound of Kandwala's footsteps, hit number 1 on the rock charts, becoming the band's 5th chart topper.
Rock and roll.
The following singles, And So It Went and Only Love Can Save Me, featured some of Cornell's former bandmates, Audioslave's Tom Morello and Soundgarden's Kim Thayil and Matt Cameron, respectively. With such high-profile guests, both songs also hit number 1 on the rock charts, while the album itself reached number 6 in the UK, in addition to topping the US sales charts. The Pretty Reckless returned to the concert stage in April 2022, when they joined Shinedown on a tour of the US. The band continued to tour throughout the year in addition to releasing Other Worlds, a compilation of alternate versions of previously released songs and other bonus tracks. Momsen and the Pretty Reckless had come out on the other side of the storm, having endured heartache and pain that might have well broken them up, or even worse. Instead, they'd come back stronger than ever. The Pretty Reckless started work on their 5th album in early 2024, but decided to postpone when they got the offer to open for rock legends AC/DC during their Power Up tour.
I had written the next record, I was really excited. So I'd called my agent and I had said, we're done touring, we finished Death by Rock and Roll, we're done with that cycle. And he goes, okay, so no more shows. I went, no, don't call me. He goes, even if someone big calls, like even if it's something massive, and I go, unless like AC/DC or the Rolling Stones call, don't bother picking up the phone. I kid you not, about 2 weeks later, we're in the studio, we are on a roll, and the phone rings, and he goes, Taylor, you're not gonna believe this, but AC/DC called, and they want you to come on tour, and I go, oh my God, when is it? And he goes, it's, right around the corner. Mind blown, blah, blah, blah. I'm so excited, I can't believe it. Of course we're gonna do that. I guess we're pausing this record.
The band spent the majority of 2024 and 2025 on the road, but in August 2025, they released the first single from their forthcoming album, For I Am Death. Quite possibly one of the band's fiercest and most ferocious tracks to date, the song became their 8th #1. They continued the momentum in October, when the band surprised everyone by releasing the EP, Taylor Momsen's Pretty Reckless Christmas, which featured a reimagined version of Where Are You Christmas from The Grinch.
Where are you, Christmas? Why can't I find you?
Also, the following month, Momsen had the honor of performing with members of Soundgarden, when the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, having previously done so at the Chris Cornell tribute concert in 2019. The Pretty Reckless continued to tour with AC/DC in 2026. A few new singles followed, including When I Wake Up, which once again hit #1 on the rock charts. The band's 5th album, Dear God, is set for release on June 26, 2026. Looking back, the story of the Pretty Reckless is really a story of integrity. From the very beginning, people doubted Momsen's credibility as a musician. Whether those doubts were founded is completely up to you, but I think we can safely say that she proved her critics wrong, and then some. In the 15 or so years since their debut, the Pretty Reckless have cemented their place as one of the premier rock acts to come out of the 2010s, as well as a commercial powerhouse seldom seen today. But what makes this such a feat is the way they've gone about it. The Pretty Reckless are a rarity in the world of rock music. Most artists can be categorized into roughly 2 camps: the trailblazers and their acolytes who define the sound of the day, and the throwback acts whose style harkens back to the glory days of rock and roll. The Pretty Reckless have walked that fine line since their inception, sounding contemporary yet old school, which has made them sort of timeless in a way. I think there's a certain level of congruity in the fact that the Pretty Reckless have spent the last few years touring with AC/DC. There's not another band out there that has stayed more true to themselves than AC/DC, and I think the same can truly be said of the Pretty Reckless. Many artists chase relevancy and success by acclimating their sound to current trends, but the Pretty Reckless have remained resolute and let success come to them. And there's poetry in that. The Pretty Reckless' story began with people questioning their authenticity. Yet, time has shown that if anything, they were more authentic than most.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
So, instead of worrying about the so-called death of rock, look to bands like the Pretty Reckless, and maybe you'll see that rock music is still alive and kicking.